Wheelchair-bound daughter forgotten among the guests. That's how she was treated at her own family's party. No one noticed her loneliness until a single father, an outsider to that circle, approached her. His simple gesture exposed a cruel truth everyone had been trying to ignore, and what began with a smile became the most human scandal of that flawless night. The Albright mansion gleamed under the starry Washington, D.C. sky. Crystals, white orchids, and sophisticated lighting transformed the gardens into a dreamlike setting. The inauguration cocktail for Hope Hospital's new wing had attracted the federal capital's elite. Politicians, businessmen, and celebrities circulated among champagne flutes and elaborate canapes. In a discreet corner of the garden, almost hidden by an exuberant floral arrangement, Sophia Albright observed everything in silence. At 12 years old, she wore a sky-blue dress, impeccably matched with a ribbon in her hair. Her delicate hands rested on the chrome wheels of her chair. No one seemed to notice her presence, although she was the hostess's daughter. Helen Albright, a renowned executive and the main donor of the new rehabilitation center, moved through the event with the elegance of someone who mastered that universe. Designer dress, discreet jewelry, and a calculated smile for each important guest. From time to time, she cast glances in her daughter's direction, quick checks that did not interrupt her social performance. Mrs. Albright, the gardeners have arrived for the final adjustments to the flower beds near the fountain, Marlene, the housekeeper, announced discreetly. Now, in the middle of the event? Helen frowned, briefly interrupting her conversation with the Secretary of Health. Couldn't they have come earlier? Tell them to finish quickly and leave through the back. At the service entrance, Oliver adjusted his improvised tie, feeling out of place in his only suit, bought for his sister's wedding 5 years ago. At 38, his calloused hands betrayed his profession as a landscaper, a trade he practiced with pride, despite its simplicity. Dad, look at all the lights. It looks like a princess's castle. Laura, his 10-year-old daughter, widened her brown eyes at the spectacle. It's beautiful, isn't it? Anthony smiled, adjusting the colorful clip that held the girl's curly hair. But remember our agreement. While I finish the work at the fountain, you stay quietly seated on that bench. We can't disturb the rich people's party. Can I bring my drawing notebook? Of course, little one. It wasn't common for Anthony to bring his daughter to his jobs, but the babysitter had cancelled last minute, and the work couldn't wait. Helen Albright was known for her demanding nature, and the maintenance contract for her mansion's gardens represented a significant part of Anthony's income, since he became a single father after his wife left when Laura was just 3 years old. As her father headed to the back to check the lighting of the central fountain, Laura walked enchanted among the lights, trying to follow the instructions not to draw attention. That's when she spotted the girl in the wheelchair, alone, watching, a nocturnal butterfly that had landed on the nearby floral arrangement. Sophia noticed her approach, but kept her eyes fixed on the insect, as if fearing that any movement might scare it away. For years she had learned to become almost invisible on these social occasions. "Hi," Laura whispered, stopping a few steps away. "Are you finding the party boring too?" Sophia looked up, surprised by the direct approach. "It's not exactly boring," she replied in a low voice, "just too noisy." Laura moved closer, showing her drawing notebook. "Can I sit here? My dad is working on the fountain, and I need to stay quiet." Sophia nodded, curious. It wasn't common for someone her age to attend those events, much less someone who spoke to her without the usual embarrassment her chair caused. "Does your dad work here?" "Only with the plants and gardens. He makes the flowers beautiful," Laura explained, sitting on the nearby bench. "Look, I drew an iguana yesterday." The childish drawing brought a small smile to Sophia's face, who visibly relaxed. "You draw well. I like reading more, but I've never tried to draw like that." "I can teach you. It's easy," Laura offered, tearing a clean sheet from her notebook. "Start with simple shapes, then add details." Across the garden, Helen led a group of investors toward the screen, where the architectural project for the new pediatric wing was to be presented. Her eyes caught the unusual movement in the corner, reserved for Sophia, and she frowned, noticing her daughter interacting with an unknown child. "Claudia," she called her assistant discreetly, Who is that girl talking to Sophia? I don't know, Dr. Albright. Shall I check? Please, and make sure they're not bothering my daughter. Anthony was adjusting the last submerged lamps in the fountain when he felt something was wrong. He turned and didn't see Laura where she should have been. A chill ran down his spine. He dropped his tools and began searching among the elegant guests, feeling the strange looks his work uniform provoked. That's when he spotted Laura sitting next to a girl in a wheelchair. Both were leaning over the drawing notebook, giggling softly. The scene warmed his heart. His daughter always had this gift for making instant friends, something he, with his shyness, had never managed. As he approached, he noticed that the girl in the wheelchair seemed to blossom in Laura's energy. Her previously serious face came alive with shy smiles. Her once still hands now gestured as she explained something. "So this is where you hid, artist?" Anthony smiled as he approached. "Excuse me, I hope my daughter isn't bothering you." Sophia looked up at the tall man with calloused hands and smiled with genuine warmth. "She's teaching me to draw a butterfly." "And she learned super fast, Dad, look!" Laura proudly displayed Sophia's drawing, which showed a simple but charming butterfly. "Natural talent," Anthony commented, crouching down to be at the girl's height. "I'm Anthony, the landscaper, and this chatterbox is my daughter, Laura." "I'm Sophia," the girl replied without mentioning her surname, as if for a few moments she could just be Sophia, not Helen Albright's daughter. "Sophia," Anthony repeated thoughtfully. "Beautiful name, it means wisdom, did you know?" The girl shook her head, surprised. "My mom chose it because it was my grandmother's name," she explained. "Do you know the meaning of many names?" "Some. I worked for a while at the public library, cataloging books. I ended up reading about many different things." The trio didn't notice the silent approach of Helen's assistant, nor the curious glances of some guests who were beginning to notice the unusual interaction. "Sophia, is everything all right?" Claudia's voice interrupted the conversation. "Your mother is worried." Sophia's expression changed instantly, returning to its usual seriousness. "I'm fine, just talking." Claudia cast an appraising look at Anthony and Laura. "Are you?" "Anthony Oliver, landscaper hired for garden maintenance." He stood up, extending his hand, which was not taken. "We were just leaving. Laura, let's go." "But Dad, Sophia, and I were." "Now, honey," Anthony gently insisted, recognizing the dynamic of the situation. He turned to Sophia with a kind smile. "It was a pleasure meeting you, Sophia." The girl nodded, her eyes revealing disappointment. "Likewise." Laura reluctantly handed the butterfly drawing to Sophia. "Keep it. If you want, draw more later." As father and daughter walked away, Anthony felt the weight of disapproving glances. It wasn't the first time his presence caused discomfort in environments like that, but something in Sophia's expression, that momentary sparkle followed by resignation, touched him deeply. "Why did we have to leave, Dad? She seemed so lonely." Anthony sighed, guiding Laura to the service exit. "Sometimes, little one, there are invisible walls that separate people. They're not fair, but they're there." At the party, Sophia carefully folded the butterfly drawing and put it in her dress pocket. Claudia adjusted her chair's position, placing her back in the designated spot, almost camouflaged among the ornamental flowers. "Your mother will give the keynote speech in a few minutes. Do you want me to take you closer to the stage?" Sophia shook her head. "I'm fine here." In the distance, Helen spoke eloquently about inclusion, accessibility, and the promising future of the rehabilitation center. The words flowed with technical precision, while her daughter remained distant, alone again, the butterfly, drawing as the only reminder that for brief minutes, someone had truly seen her beyond the wheelchair. 3 days had passed since the benefit event, but Sophia couldn't stop thinking about the girl with the drawing notebook. The butterfly drawing was now carefully taped to her wall, between official photographs and diplomas for participating in knowledge Olympiads. A piece of common paper among meticulously selected mementos by her mother. "Sophia, concentrate, please." The voice of her private math tutor interrupted her reverie. "These equations are important for next week's test." "Sorry, Professor Denise," she murmured, returning her eyes to the notebook. But her mind remained on the curly-haired girl and the rough-handed father, who spoke of name meanings and smiled without that pity Sophia so detested seeing in adults' eyes. In the late afternoon, after her physiotherapy session, Sophia was on the veranda observing the gardens when she noticed movement near the fountain. Her heart quickened as she recognized Anthony, who was adjusting the irrigation system. Alone this time, without Laura. "Cecilia," she called her caregiver who was organizing medications, "who is that man working at the fountain?" The employee approached, following Sophia's gaze. "That's Mr. Oliver, the landscaper. He comes every week for maintenance." "Every week?" Sophia asked, surprised. "For how long?" In about 2 years, I think." "Why, dear?" Sophia didn't answer, watching intently every movement of the man who cared for the plants with visible dedication, even from a distance. "Can I go to the garden?" "I wanted some fresh air." Cecilia hesitated. "Your mother left instructions for us to finish reviewing schoolwork before dinner." "Please," Sophia insisted, something rare in her usually resigned behavior. "Just 15 minutes. I promise to concentrate afterward." The caregiver yielded, helping her down the ramp that led to the gardens. Sophia skillfully maneuvered her chair along the paved paths, slowly approaching the fountain where Anthony worked. "Hi," she called shyly when she was a few feet away. Anthony turned, surprised, and a genuine smile lit up his face as he recognized her. "Sophia, good to see you. Do you come here every week?" "Yes, I've been taking care of your house's gardens for over 2 years, he confirmed, wiping his hands on his uniform. "But I usually come when you're at school." "Oh," Sophia nodded, processing the information. "Laura didn't come today. She's at music class. She plays guitar," he explained with paternal pride. "But she was happy to have met you the other day. She even asked me to bring this." From his pocket, Anthony took out a colorful envelope with flower drawings on the border. "It's an invitation to her performance at the Maplewood Community School's Cultural Festival next Saturday. She insisted I deliver it personally." Sophia held the envelope as if it were a treasure, surprise evident on her face. "She barely knows me." "Laura has her way. When she likes someone, it's from the heart," Anthony explained, crouching down to be at Sophia's eye level. "But don't feel pressured. I know it's complicated." "I want to go," Sophia replied quickly. "I just don't know if my mom—" "Sophia, what are you doing out here?" Helen's voice cut through the conversation. She approached with quick steps, her high heels echoing on the stone path, still dressed in the executive suit she had worn during her workday. "Good afternoon." "Mrs. Albright," Anthony stood up, assuming a professional posture. You were just finishing your work, I imagine," Helen completed coldly. She turned to Sophia, softening her tone slightly. "You should be studying with Denise." "What are you doing out here?" "I just wanted some air," Sophia replied, discreetly hiding the envelope in her pocket. "And I saw Mr. Oliver working on the plants." Helen cast an appraising look at the landscaper. "You are that girl's father from the party, correct?" "The one who was talking to my daughter." "Yes, ma'am. I apologize if we caused any inconvenience. Laura is very sociable and—" "I understand, but I prefer to be informed when my daughter interacts with—" "People I don't know," Helen interrupted. She turned back to Sophia. "Come on, dear. Cecilia is looking for you for your 6 o'clock medicine." Sophia cast an apologetic look at Anthony as her mother took control of the wheelchair. He merely nodded discreetly, understanding. Later in her room, Sophia took the envelope from her pocket, opening it carefully. Inside was a handmade card, decorated with colorful drawings. "Cultural Festival, Maplewood Community School. Saturday, 3 p.m., guitar performance, Laura Oliver. P.S. I really hope you come. I have more drawings to show you." Sophia tucked the invitation under her pillow when she heard a knock at the door. Helen entered, already in more comfortable clothes, bringing a tea. "Drink this, it will help you relax before bed," she offered, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Sophia, we need to talk about today." "Sorry for leaving during class," Helen sighed. "It's not just that. I'm concerned about this sudden closeness with the gardener's daughter." "Laura," Sophia corrected softly. "Her name is Laura." "Yes, Laura," Helen conceded. "I understand you want to make friends, but there are more suitable children in your social circle. Dr. Mendoza's daughters, for example, or the ambassador's nieces and nephews. They never talk to me normally," Sophia replied, staring at the teacup. Only when you insist. The observation hit Helen like a blow, but she maintained her composure. People sometimes don't know how to act, dear. We need to educate them. Laura didn't need to be educated. She just talked to me as if I were just like anyone else. Helen adjusted her posture, uncomfortable. Sophia, you are not the same. You are exceptional, special, and you deserve friendships that can contribute to your development. Which means Laura can't. That's not what I said. It's what you meant, Sophia insisted with unusual firmness. She invited me to her school's cultural festival this Saturday. I want to go. Helen seemed genuinely surprised by the request. Saturday? Impossible. We have the Foundation's charity lunch at 1 p.m., then your occupational therapy at 4 p.m. I can miss therapy. Just this once, Sophia pleaded, her eyes revealing a rare determination. Please, Mom. Helen observed her daughter for long seconds, torn between surprise at the unusual social interest and concern about what she considered an inappropriate friendship. I'll think about it, she finally replied, standing up. Now drink your tea and rest. Tomorrow you have French class early. The next morning, while Sophia was in her hydrotherapy session, Helen was flipping through documents in her office when Marlene, the housekeeper, entered with coffee. Excuse me, Mrs. Albright, may I ask a question? Of course, Marlene. It's about Mr. Oliver, the gardener. Is there a problem with his service? Helen looked up from her papers. Not that I know of. Why? Well, yesterday you seemed bothered when he was talking to little Sophia, and he was worried, thinking he might have overstepped a boundary. Helen put her pen down on the table, considering the situation. It's not about his service, which is excellent, but I don't think it's appropriate for my daughter to develop a friendship with people from a different social reality. It can create impossible expectations. Marlene, who had worked for the Albrights for decades and had the confidence to speak her mind, sighed. If you'll allow me, Mrs. Albright, perhaps those are expectations you have, not the girl. What do you mean? I see Sophia every day. She spends most of her time alone, even when she's surrounded by people of the same social standing. Marlene made air quotes with her fingers. On the day of the party, it was the first time in years I saw that girl truly smile. Helen was silent, absorbing the comment. Mr. Oliver is a decent man. Mrs. Albright, he raised that girl alone after her mother abandoned them both. He's never missed a day of work, even when the little one got sick and he had to juggle everything to take care of her. I'm not questioning his character, Marlene. I know. I just think Sophia deserves a little joy in her life. And if she found that in Laura, what harm can it do? The question hung in the air as Marlene left. Helen remained motionless, staring at Sophia's photograph on her desk. An official portrait, a restrained smile, a studied pose. She tried to remember the last time she had seen her daughter truly excited about something. That afternoon, Helen cancelled 2 meetings and drove to Maplewood Community School. She parked her imported car among modest vehicles and observed the movement of parents picking up their children. She located Anthony waiting at the gate, chatting amiably with other mothers. Laura ran out and jumped into her father's arms, who spun her in the air before putting her down. The scene of spontaneous affection contrasted drastically with the carefully measured interactions Helen maintained with Sophia. When the two began to walk towards the bus stop, Helen took a deep breath and got out of the car. "Mr. Oliver," she called, attracting curious glances from those present. Anthony stopped, visibly surprised to recognize her. "Mrs. Albright? Sir, can we talk for a minute?" "Of course," he agreed, intrigued. "Laura, wait here nearby, okay?" The girl nodded, curiously observing the elegant woman who seemed out of place in that simple school environment. "It's about the invitation your daughter made to Sophia," Helen began, nervously adjusting the strap of her designer bag. "For the cultural festival." "Ah, yes," Anthony smiled. "Laura is very excited about the possibility, but I explained that it might not be possible and that she shouldn't get her hopes up." Helen studied the man in front of her. There was no subservience in his posture, just a quiet dignity she hadn't expected. "I heard you were raising your daughter alone." "Yes, since she was 3 years old. It must be difficult. It has its challenges," he admitted. "But Laura is the best thing that ever happened to me. Every sacrifice is worth it." Something in that statement touched Helen deeply. Sophia seems genuinely interested in going to the festival, she said, surprising herself. What time does it start again? The auditorium of Maplewood Community School was decorated with colorful flags and posters made by the students. Nothing sophisticated, just the authentic charm of a public school where collective effort compensated for a lack of resources. The plastic chairs were almost all occupied when Helen parked her Audi on the street in front of the school. "We're here," she announced, trying to disguise her own nervousness as she observed Sophia in the rearview mirror. The girl was radiant. She wore a simple dress chosen by herself, something rare as Helen usually selected her clothes. On her lap, a small package wrapped in colorful paper. "What's that?" Helen asked, pointing to the package as she took the wheelchair out of the trunk. "A gift for Laura. I made it last night." Helen felt a pang of guilt. She hadn't known her daughter had prepared a gift, much less that she had the skill to do it herself. "May I see?" Sophia hesitated, then carefully opened the wrapping, revealing a small handmade notebook, with a cover decorated with butterfly drawings in different styles, some glued, others painted. "I researched butterflies online and printed some. I also tried to draw others like Laura taught me. Cecilia helped me bind it." Helen was speechless. The notebook revealed a creative side of Sophia she was completely unaware of. "It's beautiful," she finally managed to say. "I'm sure she'll love it." As Helen helped Sophia settle into her wheelchair, she noticed the curious glances of parents arriving for the event. It was clear they stood out from the environment. Her imported car, her designer clothes, even Sophia's state-of-the-art motorized wheelchair drew attention. "Mum," Sophia called softly, noticing her hesitation. "Can we go in?" Helen nodded, pushing the chair towards the entrance. On the way, she noticed the modest conditions of the school: peeling paint, old equipment, basic infrastructure. A world completely different from the private institutions Sophia attended, with their impeccable facilities and cutting-edge technology. "Helen, Sophia," Anthony's voice sounded behind them. He approached, visibly surprised to actually see them there. "You came," he exclaimed with a genuine smile. He wore dark dress pants and a clean pressed shirt, clearly his special occasion attire. "Laura will be thrilled. She's backstage, nervous about the performance." "Thank you for the invitation," Sophia replied, her eyes sparkling. "I brought a gift for her." "You didn't have to," Anthony smiled, touched by the gesture. He looked at Helen. "I saved seats in the front where there's space for the chair. If you'd like to join me." Helen nodded, grateful for the consideration. As they followed Anthony down the side corridor, she observed his interactions with people. He greeted everyone by name, exchanged words of encouragement with teachers, received pats on the back from other parents. He was clearly part of that community, respected and liked. "Here," Anthony indicated, showing spaces in the first row. "From this angle, you'll have a good view of the stage. Laura is the third performance. Aren't you staying with us?" Sophia asked, visibly disappointed. "I'll help backstage first. Some children are nervous, and the teachers asked for extra help. I'll be back for Laura's performance." As Anthony walked away, Helen noticed Sophia's admiring gaze. "He seems to really like helping," the girl commented. "Did you see how everyone talks to him?" Helen nodded thoughtfully. In her corporate world, relationships were predominantly strategic, rarely as genuine as those she witnessed there. The festival began with the children's choir performance. Children between 6 and 8 years old sang Brazilian folk songs, some slightly off-key, but with contagious enthusiasm. Helen found herself smiling at the spontaneity of the scene. The second performance was a short play about environmental preservation. Sophia watched everything with absolute attention, as if every moment were precious. Finally, they announced the guitar performance by the 4th grade students. 5 children went on stage with their instruments, Laura among them. The girl scanned the audience until she located Sophia, breaking into a huge smile and waving discreetly. The young musicians positioned themselves and began to play Asa Branca, White Wing, in a simplified arrangement. Laura showed surprising concentration and technique for her age. When they finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. Helen saw Anthony, now sitting 2 rows behind, applauding with undisguised pride, his eyes welling up. After the performance, as those present headed to the patio for the get-together, Laura ran to Sophia, still holding her guitar. You really came? That's awesome. You play very well, Sophia complimented, extending the package. I made this for you. Laura opened the gift with enthusiasm, exclaiming with joy at seeing the handmade notebook. Wow, how beautiful. Did you draw these butterflies? They're perfect. Sophia blushed at the compliment. Some I drew, others I cut from magazines. There are blank pages for you to make more drawings. I'm going to draw every day, Laura promised, spontaneously hugging Sophia. Helen observed the scene, noticing how her daughter, usually tense when touched by strangers, relaxed in the embrace. That's when she saw Anthony approaching with 2 glasses of juice. I thought you might want something to drink, he offered. It's cashew juice made by the school association mothers. Helen accepted the glass, surprised by the kindness. Thank you. Laura, why don't you take Sophia to meet your music teacher? She wanted to congratulate you on your performance. Can I, Mom? Sophia asked, turning to Helen expectantly. Of course, Helen agreed. Watching the 2 girls walk away, Laura carefully pushing Sophia's chair as if she had done it her whole life. Your daughter plays very well, Helen commented, breaking the silence that had settled between her and Anthony. How long has she been studying guitar? 2 years. I saved for months to buy the instrument, he replied simply. The teacher says she has natural talent, but I believe it's more dedication. Laura is determined when she wants something. Helen nodded, recognizing the same quality in Sophia. It must be difficult to provide opportunities as a single father, she observed, without the condescending tone she would normally use. Anthony smiled. Say without embarrassment. Every reality has its challenges, doesn't it? I imagine raising a daughter with special needs isn't easy either, even with resources. The observation, made without judgment, caught Helen off guard. Few people in her social circle openly mentioned Sophia's condition. You're right, she admitted after a moment. Resources help with therapies, equipment, adapted schools, but they don't solve everything. What isn't solved with money? The question, simple and direct, made Helen reflect. Loneliness, she finally replied, surprising herself with her honesty. Social isolation. True friendships. Anthony nodded understandingly. Laura commented that Sophia seemed very lonely at the party. She noticed that. Children see things that we adults often ignore, Anthony shrugged. Laura grew up having to observe the world carefully. When her mother left, I realized she developed a kind of radar for people who feel lonely, perhaps because she herself has felt that way. Helen felt a lump in her throat. How many times had she ignored Sophia's signs of isolation, convincing herself that providing the best in material and educational terms was enough? Sophia never had many friends, she confessed, lowering her guard. The children in our social circle don't know how to act around her, and I maybe made things difficult with my overprotection. It's natural to want to protect, Anthony replied without judgment, especially when you're a single mother, I imagine. How did you know I'm a single mother? Marlene mentioned it, I hope you don't mind. And I noticed that at events only you show up. Helen nodded. Her ex-husband, Richard, had left them when Sophia was only 4 years old, shortly after the accident that confined her to a wheelchair. Funny how we have that in common, she observed. Both raising our daughters alone. In completely different worlds, Anthony completed with a gentle smile. The conversation was interrupted by the girls' return, Laura animatedly reporting how the music teacher had praised Sophia for her knowledge of classical composers. Sophia knows everything about classical music, Dad. She plays piano. Piano? That's incredible, Anthony commented, genuinely impressed. I'm not that good, Sophia downplayed, though her face showed pleasure at the recognition. Sophia is modest, Helen intervened, feeling a pang of pride. She has a natural talent for music. She's been studying since she was 5. You should come over for lunch sometime, Laura suggested suddenly. Sophia could play our piano. Laura, Anthony gently reprimanded her. We don't have a piano, honey. But Mr. Gerald next door does. He always lets me play his accordion. I'm sure he'd let Sophia use the old piano in the basement. Helen and Anthony exchanged embarrassed glances, both aware of the social chasm that separated their realities. Perhaps, Anthony replied diplomatically, we can arrange another type of meeting first. Why not at City Park? Sophia suggested unexpectedly. There's that lake with ducks, and an accessible picnic area for wheelchairs. We could go next weekend. The direct request caught Helen off guard. Sophia rarely suggested outings, especially in public places where her condition attracted stares. That's a great idea, Anthony agreed before Helen could answer. What do you think, Mrs. Albright? Pressed by the hopeful glances of the two girls and Anthony's disconcerting kindness, Helen felt her defenses crumble. All right, she agreed. But please call me Helen. The smile that lit up Sophia's face was so radiant that Helen felt an almost forgotten emotion, the simple joy of seeing her daughter happy. On the way home, Sophia didn't stop talking about the performance, about how talented Laura was, and how the school, despite being simple, had a welcoming atmosphere. You really had fun, didn't you? Helen asked, observing her daughter in the rearview mirror. It was the best day in a long time, Sophia replied sincerely. Thank you for letting me go, Mom. Those simple words provoked a contradictory mix of happiness and guilt in Helen. Happiness at seeing Sophia animated, guilt at realizing how much time she had wasted trying to mold her daughter's world according to her own criteria. That night, as she checked if Sophia was comfortably settled in bed, Helen noticed the small drawing notebook Laura had given Sophia on the day of the party, carefully kept in the nightstand drawer, along with other small treasures. You really liked Laura, didn't you? She asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. Sophia nodded. She looks me in the eyes when she talks to me, she replied simply. She doesn't stare at my chair or talk as if I were a baby. And you know what? She's afraid of thunder, just like me. The observation, seemingly trivial, contained a powerful revelation. Sophia had found someone with whom she shared not only interests, but also vulnerabilities. A real friendship, without pretensions or social barriers. Her father also seems like a good person, Helen commented, surprising herself with her own sincerity. He's kind, and he knows a lot about plants. He told me that every flower has a special meaning. Really? Yes, he said he'll teach me the language of flowers one day. Helen smiled, stroking her daughter's hair. It seems we have an interesting plan for next weekend. Then, you're really going to let us have the picnic? I am, Helen promised. And maybe we can invite them to come here too someday. Sophia's eyes sparkled at the possibility. Laura could swim in the pool with me. And I could show her my book collection. You could, yes, Helen agreed, kissing her daughter's forehead. Now sleep, it's getting late. Later, alone in her room, Helen faced her reflection in the mirror. A 42-year-old woman who had built a business empire and an impeccable reputation, but who had somehow lost sight of what truly mattered. Sophia's smile today, spontaneous, genuine, was something she hadn't seen in years. Her phone vibrated with a text message. Thanks for coming today. It meant a lot to Laura, and Sophia is an extraordinary girl. You are welcome in our simple world whenever you want. Anthony. Helen reread the message several times, touched by the sincerity of the words. She realized that in some way, that calloused-handed man and his cheerful daughter were breaking down the invisible walls she had built around herself and Sophia after Richard's abandonment. With a sigh, she replied, "We thank you." It was a special day. Picnic confirmed for next Saturday, 10 a.m. Sophia can't wait. She turned off her phone and, for the first time in a long time, slept without the help of insomnia pills, lulled by the memory of her daughter's smile and the strange feeling that something important was beginning to change in their lives. The following weeks flowed into a surprisingly pleasant routine. The picnic at City Park had been just the beginning. Soon came other activities, a visit to the botanical garden, where Anthony impressed the girls with his knowledge of native species, an afternoon at the movies followed by ice cream, even a visit to the Olivers' small apartment in Arlington, where Laura proudly showed Sophia her collection of colorful stones and books from the public library. The transformation in Sophia was evident. The previously quiet and reserved girl now spoke enthusiastically about her plans with Laura, suggested activities, and had even begun to question some of the numerous therapies that filled her schedule. "Can't I really cancel Thursday's speech therapy?" Sophia asked, as Helen braided her hair one Tuesday morning. "Laura is going to participate in a kite workshop in her neighborhood park, and Uncle Anthony said he could teach me how to make an adapted one that I can control with my hands." Helen hesitated. The speech therapy sessions were important, even if Sophia didn't have severe speech problems. It was part of the complete package of therapies she had meticulously put together after the accident. "I'll see if I can reschedule," she finally replied, surprising herself with the flexibility. "I don't promise anything, but I'll try." Sophia's smile was reward enough. In the office, however, Helen faced questioning glances. Beatrice Mendoza, her partner in the development firm and a longtime friend, didn't hide her concern during their executive lunch that day. "So you cancelled your participation in the departmental reception to take Sophia to a picnic?" she asked, raising a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "It was important to her," Helen replied dryly, cutting a piece of salmon. "And I sent Ferdinand to represent me at the reception." "Helen, you never send representatives to events of that caliber," Beatrice insisted. "And I heard your daughter is attending a public school in Arlington." "Is that true?" "Sophia isn't attending the school. We went to a cultural festival, at the invitation of the daughter of the landscaper who takes care of my gardens." "The landscaper," Beatrice repeated, with a tone that made her disapproval clear. "Listen, Helen, I don't want to meddle, but after what happened with Richard, you built a structured life for Sophia. Therapies, doctors, the best possible education. And she never had a real friend until now," Helen completed, feeling a wave of irritation. "Beatrice, for the first time in years, I'm seeing my daughter act like a normal child her age, laughing, making plans, eager for the next meeting with her friend. I understand that, dear, but there are clubs, associations, support groups with children from our social circle. Children whose parents share our values, our worldview." Helen put her cutlery down on the plate, staring at her friend. "What values would those be? Appearances? Status? Is that what was left to me after Richard abandoned us when Sophia needed a father most?" Beatrice recoiled, surprised by the sharp retort. "That's not what I meant. I just worry about you, about the comments." "What comments?" "Helen, you're an influential woman. People notice your choices. At the last association meeting, Monica Castle commented that she saw you at the mall with Sophia and a simple-looking couple. Someone said the man works for you." Helen felt her face flush. "Anthony works for me, yes. He is a competent professional who, by coincidence, is raising a daughter alone just like me, and we are discovering that our daughters get along very well, despite the social differences that seem to bother you and that gossip Monica so much. It's not just that, and you know it," Beatrice lowered her voice. "For they're saying that you and this gardener—" "If you complete that sentence, our 20-year friendship ends here," Helen interrupted coldly. "My personal life is not open to speculation, not even yours." Helen's phone vibrated on the table. It was a message from Anthony with a photo of Laura, proudly showing a drawing she had made of Sophia playing the piano. The image brought an involuntary smile to her face. "See?" Helen turned the screen to Beatrice. "This is what I'm talking about. A child who sees my daughter as she is, not as an object of pity or curiosity." Beatrice observed the photo for a few moments. "The girl seems adorable," she admitted. "I just don't want you to get hurt. Or worse, for Sophia to get hurt." Helen put her phone away, reflecting on the comment. "Sometimes I wonder who is more protected against disappointment, Sophia in her wheelchair or me in my corporate ivory tower." The following Saturday, for the first time, Helen invited Anthony and Laura to visit her home, not as an employee and his daughter, but as guests. She spent the morning in an atypical agitation, personally checking the lunch details with the cook, arranging the cushions in the living room, even selecting music for the ambient sound system. "Are you nervous, ma'am?" Cecilia, Sophia's caregiver, asked with a discreet smile as she helped the girl get dressed. "Of course not," Helen replied quickly. "Why would I be?" "I don't know," Cecilia shrugged, "but it's the first time I've seen you change clothes 3 times before receiving visitors." Helen blushed slightly, aware that she had spent too much time choosing an outfit that was elegant without appearing ostentatious. She had finally opted for linen pants and a light blue silk blouse, more casual than her usual work clothes, but still sophisticated. The intercom rang promptly at noon. Helen felt a chill in her stomach as she heard Marlene announce the guests' arrival. "Let's receive them in the garden," she decided, noting the sunny day perfect for an outdoor meal. Sophia was already on the veranda, radiant in her favorite dress, a colorful tiara in her hair, a gift Laura had brought from an artisan fair. Anthony and Laura appeared walking through the garden, accompanied by Marlene. He carried a bouquet of wildflowers and a bottle that seemed to be homemade juice. Laura carefully carried a small decorated box. "Welcome," Helen greeted them, noticing that Anthony also seemed to have dressed up. Dark dress pants, a neatly pressed light shirt, freshly cut hair. "Thank you for the invitation," he replied, handing her the bouquet. "They're from my garden. Nothing sophisticated, but picked this morning." "They're beautiful," Helen commented, genuinely touched by the gesture. "I'll put them in water." "And I brought this for you, Sophia," Laura exclaimed, handing her the box. "We made it together last night." Sophia opened the gift, revealing a small miniature garden inside a recycled aquarium. Succulents, colorful pebbles, small ceramic figures, and even a miniature ramp leading to a tiny house. "It's a terrarium," Anthony explained. Laura wanted to make an accessible garden for wheelchairs, with ramps and flat paths. Sophia was speechless for a few moments, her eyes welling up. "It's the most incredible gift I've ever received," she finally whispered. Lunch unfolded with surprising naturalness. In the garden, under the shade of a large mango tree, they talked about trivial matters: the new superhero movie the girls wanted to see, the urban tree planting project Anthony was working on as a volunteer, Sophia and Laura's music lessons. "Perhaps we could find a teacher who also gives piano lessons to Laura," Helen suggested during dessert. "Sophia could help with the initial exercises." "That would be amazing," Laura exclaimed, enthusiastic. "But pianos are very expensive, right, Dad?" Anthony seemed embarrassed. "It's an instrument that's a bit out of our budget for now, Princess. But who knows, maybe later." "Actually," Helen intervened, "we have a piano that's rarely used. It belonged to my mother. Sophia prefers the electric piano in her room to practice. If Laura wants to use the one in the living room for lessons, it would be a pleasure." The offer hung in the air. Helen immediately realized she had crossed an invisible line. Anthony's face showed evident internal conflict, gratitude for the generosity versus pride, wounded by the implicit charity. "That's very kind of you," he finally replied, choosing his words carefully. "But I don't want to impose. The girls are already building a beautiful friendship. We don't need to complicate things." Helen understood the subtext. Accepting favors would create an even greater imbalance in the relationship, reinforcing the social disparity they were both trying to minimize for the girls' sake. "Of course," she gracefully retreated. "It was just a suggestion. I apologize if it sounded inappropriate." An awkward silence settled, broken by Sophia's animated voice. "Can we show Laura the pool? The water's heated today." The tension dissipated as the girls headed to the pool area. Laura marveled at the adapted lift that allowed Sophia to enter the water without help. "That's so cool. Can you swim by yourself?" "Yes. In the water I don't need my chair. Come on, I'll show you." As the girls enjoyed themselves in the pool, Sophia surprisingly agile in the water, Laura quickly learning the strokes her friend taught her. Helen and Anthony watched from the edge. "She seems like a different person in the water," Anthony commented. "So free." "The physical therapist says it's the moment her muscles have full freedom of movement," Helen explained. "That's why we invested so much in this adapted structure. It's her favorite spot in the house. It must have been difficult." "After the accident," Anthony commented cautiously, it was the first time they had directly mentioned Sophia's condition. Helen felt the familiar pang of pain, but surprisingly, not the usual need to change the subject. "It was devastating," she admitted. Sophia was 4 years old. She was an extremely active child. She danced, ran, never stopped for a minute. Then a drunk driver drove onto the sidewalk where we were walking. She took a deep breath, controlling her emotion. "The spinal injury was irreversible." "I'm so sorry," Anthony said simply, his hand lightly touching Helen's arm in a gesture of solidarity. "Richard, my ex-husband couldn't cope with the situation," she continued, surprised at herself for sharing a story she rarely mentioned. First there were arguments about experimental treatments, then depression, finally his absence. A year after the accident, he simply left. New city, new family, new beginning. Abandoning his own daughter when she needed him most, Anthony summarized, a touch of indignation in his voice. "How could someone do that?" "The same way Carla did with you and Laura, I imagine," Helen replied, remembering the little she knew about his ex-wife. Anthony nodded. Thoughtful. I think deep down it's the same problem. Inability to deal with difficulties, to accept that life doesn't always follow the script we planned. But you stayed, Helen observed. Even though you were young, even alone. What choice did I have? Laura is my whole life, he smiled, watching his daughter, who was now laughing as Sophia taught her to float. Besides, it wasn't as terrible as Carla imagined. Yes, we had financial difficulties. I sacrificed studies, career opportunities. But I gained all her smiles, all her first times, all her discoveries. You're a good father, Anthony, Helen commented, with a genuine admiration that surprised them both. And you're a good mother. Helen, look at everything you've built for Sophia. Before they could continue their conversation, Helen's phone rang. It was her assistant, Ferdinand, with an office emergency. Excuse me, I need to take this. She walked away, irritated by the interruption. When she returned 20 minutes later, she found Anthony at the edge of the pool, his feet in the water, teaching the girls how to make paper boats that sailed between them. The scene was so natural, so harmonious, that Helen felt an inexplicable emotion tightening her chest. Problems at work? Anthony asked when he noticed her. Nothing that can't wait until tomorrow, Helen decided, surprising herself. Normally, any call from the office would be a top priority. Can I join you? Yes, of course, Laura replied enthusiastically. Uncle Anthony is teaching us aquatic origami. Uncle Anthony? Helen raised an eyebrow, amused. He shrugged, slightly embarrassed. It was spontaneous. Sophia started calling me that and Laura found it funny. I don't mind, Helen assured, taking off her shoes to put her feet in the water too. The afternoon passed too quickly. When the sun began to set, Helen surprised everyone by inviting Anthony and Laura to dinner before they left. We've already overstayed our welcome, Anthony hesitated. Please, stay, Sophia pleaded. We can watch that movie Laura mentioned. We have popcorn and everything. Her daughter's sincere request broke any resistance from Anthony. Later, after a simple and comfortable dinner, the girls fell asleep on the TV room sofa, exhausted after the day's activities. Helen and Anthony sat on the veranda, enjoying the starry night in the Blue Ridge country. Thank you for today, Anthony commented. I've never seen Laura so happy. I should thank you. Sophia is transformed since she met you both. A comfortable silence settled between them until Anthony spoke. Helen, I need to tell you something. People are going to talk. They already are, she confirmed. My partner made sure to warn me about the malicious comments. I don't want to cause problems for you or Sophia. I'm not worried about comments, Helen stated firmly. For years I lived based on what others thought, on appearances, on status, only to discover that none of it brought real happiness to my daughter. Anthony studied her face, admiring her determination. Even so, we must be careful. Because of the girls. Helen nodded, understanding his concern. It wasn't just about them, but about the precious bond Sophia and Laura were building. Speaking of care, she began hesitant. I received an invitation to spend a weekend at my country estate in Blue Ridge next month. It's Sophia's birthday. I thought maybe you two would like to come with us. There's a waterfall, accessible trails, lots of outdoor space for the girls. The invitation hung in the air like a possibility that went far beyond a simple outing. It would be very special for Sophia, Helen completed, noticing his hesitation. And for me too. Anthony observed her for long seconds before replying. We need to talk about a lot of things before that. Helen, I know. There's a whole world between us. I know that too. And yet, Helen smiled, feeling a lightness she hadn't experienced in years. And yet, here we are. The country estate in Blue Ridge exuded a rustic tranquility, with its stone house, flowering gardens, and mountain views. Despite the architectural simplicity, the details revealed Helen's sophisticated touch, designer furniture, selected artworks, technology discreetly integrated into the natural environment. Everything perfectly adapted for Sophia's mobility. They arrived on a sunny Friday in September. The fresh mountain air and the distant sound of the waterfall created the perfect atmosphere for Sophia's 13th birthday, which would be celebrated on Sunday. This place is magical, Anthony commented, as he helped unload the luggage from the pickup truck Helen had rented, especially for the trip. Considering the space needed for Sophia's wheelchair and equipment. It belonged to my grandmother, Helen explained. When I inherited it, I renovated it with Sophia in mind. It was the first project I personally undertook at the development firm. Laura ran across the lawn, exploring every corner with the typical curiosity of her 10 years, while Sophia watched her from the veranda, her serene smile on her face. "Come on, Sophia," Laura called, approaching. "There's a stone path you can use with your chair. Uncle Anthony can help you on the trickier parts." Anthony exchanged a look with Helen, seeking approval. "Go," she encouraged. The path was adapted for her, but it's better to have someone along for the first exploration. As the three walked away towards the orchard, Helen remained on the veranda, observing the scene with a mixture of emotions. In recent months, her life had completely changed. The previously rigidly structured routine now included impromptu picnics, movie visits, board game afternoons. Sophia smiled more, talked more, lived more, and there was Anthony. Their relationship had evolved cautiously, respecting the limits imposed by social differences, and especially for the well-being of the girls. They hadn't defined what they felt, nor where they were heading, but the connection that had grown between them was undeniable. The afternoon passed peacefully. Helen prepared a snack table in the outdoor area. Anthony lit the fireplace to ward off the approaching evening chill, and the girls exhausted their energy with games and stories. After dinner, when Sophia and Laura were already settled in the room they would share, Helen and Anthony sat on the veranda, enjoying the starry sky of the mountains. "Thank you for this invitation," Anthony commented, breaking the comfortable silence. "Laura has never had a weekend like this. Sophia hasn't either. I mean, we've been here many times, but it was always just the two of us or with a caregiver. You never invited friends." Helen sighed. "I tried a few times. I invited colleagues from work with children, distant cousins. It never worked out. The children were uncomfortable around Sophia, the adults excessively solicitous or visibly relieved when it was time to leave. It must have been painful for her." "It was. So eventually I stopped trying." Helen paused, observing the stars, "until you all appeared." Anthony smiled, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of the garden lights. "You know what Laura told me last night? That Sophia is the sister she always wanted to have." Helen felt a lump in her throat. "Sophia said something similar last week. She asked if it would be strange to consider Laura as family, even without blood ties. And what did you say?" "That families are formed in many different ways," Helen said, her voice soft. "Some by birth, others by choice." Anthony nodded, thoughtful. "Helen, we need to talk about something important." His serious tone alarmed her. "What's wrong?" "I received a job offer. An urban revitalization project in Richmond. It would be an incredible opportunity for me professionally." Helen felt a tightness in her chest. "You would move." "It's a possibility. The salary is significantly better. I'd have health insurance for Laura, possibilities for growth." "I understand," Helen replied, trying to hide her disappointment. "It's an important decision for you both." "For all four of us," Anthony corrected, surprising her. "Because what happens between you and me, between Sophia and Laura, is not something we can simply discard." Helen nodded, feeling vulnerable in a way she hadn't experienced in years. "When do you need to decide?" "This Monday. But before I make any decision, I need to understand where we stand, you and I." The question hung in the air, laden with meanings and possibilities. "I don't know exactly," Helen admitted honestly. "I just know you brought something into our lives that I didn't imagine was possible again." "And you into ours," he replied, his hand finding hers on the table. "But I'm afraid, Helen, afraid that the differences between us will eventually outweigh the feelings." "What differences?" Anthony chuckled softly. "Besides the obvious, you're a successful businesswoman. I'm a landscaper who barely finished college. You attend receptions with politicians and businessmen. I play pickup soccer on Sundays with friends from the neighborhood. Our worlds are completely different." "Perhaps we needed different worlds to build something new," Helen reflected. "Something that wasn't my world of appearances and social conventions, nor yours of limitations and financial challenges." Anthony smiled, admiring the way she could see possibilities where he saw obstacles. "And the girls? What happens if—" He hesitated. "If we try and it doesn't work out?" The question was legitimate and responsible, exactly what Helen would expect from him. They're already connected, Anthony, regardless of us. Sophia has never had a friendship like this, and from what you say, neither has Laura. True, he agreed. I think that's my biggest fear. Not so much hurting you or myself, but causing pain to the girls. Helen was about to answer when they heard a noise coming from the hallway. Sophia appeared at the veranda door in her wheelchair. Sophia, is everything all right, dear? Helen asked, concerned. Yes, I just came to get some water, the girl replied. Laura's asleep, but I couldn't fall asleep. Do you want to join us for a bit? Anthony invited. Sophia nodded, maneuvering her chair to be near them. There was something in her expression, an unusual seriousness even for her. You were talking about Richmond, she commented after a moment of silence. Anthony and Helen exchanged surprised glances. Did you overhear our conversation? Helen asked without accusation. Not on purpose, Sophia assured. I was going to the kitchen when I heard. Sorry. It's okay, Anthony assured. It wasn't a secret. We were just discussing possibilities. Sophia bit her lip, hesitant. Are you going to separate then? Is Laura leaving? The concern in her voice was palpable. Nothing has been decided yet, dear, Helen explained softly. Anthony received a job offer, and we're talking about what would be best for everyone. Sophia was silent for a moment, processing the information. Can I say something? Of course, Helen and Anthony replied in unison. Before Laura and Uncle Anthony, Sophia began, carefully choosing her words. I didn't know I could just be a girl. What do you mean, Sophia? Helen asked, intrigued. I was always the girl in the wheelchair, or the businesswoman's daughter, or the physiotherapy patient, Sophia explained. Never just Sophia. A person with tastes, ideas, feelings beyond my physical condition. Helen felt her heart ache. Laura was the first person who truly saw me, Sophia continued, and Uncle Anthony was the first adult besides Mom, who spoke to me without that strange voice people use, as if I didn't understand things. Anthony smiled, touched by the observation. And you, Mom? Sophia turned to Helen. You're different since they appeared. Lighter, happier. You laugh more. Helen couldn't contain her emotion. She had never imagined that her daughter perceived so many nuances, that she observed with such attention the subtle transformations in her behavior. That's why, Sophia concluded with surprising maturity, I think it would be sad if you gave up just because it's complicated or different. A significant silence settled on the veranda. The wisdom of that 13-year-old girl, drawn from years of observing the world from a unique perspective, deeply touched Anthony and Helen. I think your daughter just taught us a lesson, Helen, Anthony commented finally, with an emotional smile. Sophia has always been wiser than me, Helen admitted, wiping away a discreet tear. So what are you going to do? Sophia asked directly. Helen and Anthony exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. We're going to find a solution together, Helen replied. One that allows us to stay united in some way. Like a family? Sophia asked hopefully. Perhaps, Anthony replied cautiously. But families come in many different forms, Sophia. The important thing is that people care about each other. Sophia nodded, apparently satisfied with the answer. Can I tell Laura tomorrow that she's not leaving? You can tell her we're working to make sure that doesn't happen, Helen replied diplomatically. Now I think it's time for everyone to sleep, don't you? The next morning, the country estate awoke to the aroma of fresh coffee and homemade bread. Helen, always an early riser, surprised everyone by personally preparing breakfast, something she rarely did in the busy city routine. Laura came down first, still in her pajamas, her curly hair pointing in all directions. Good morning, Aunt Helen, she exclaimed animatedly without ceremony. Wow, what a good smell. Good morning, Laura. Did you sleep well? Yes. The bed is too soft, it feels like a cloud, the girl commented, sitting at the table. Has Sophia woken up yet? Not yet. She usually sleeps a little longer when she's here at the estate. The mountain air does that. Can I go wake her up? Laura asked, already getting up. Of course, but remember she might need help getting out of bed. I'll call Dad to help. Laura ran off towards the guest room where Anthony was sleeping, leaving Helen with a smile on her lips. The naturalness with which the girl handled Sophia's special needs was something that still surprised her. Minutes later, the sound of laughter filled the house. Sophia appeared in the living room, being pushed by Laura, while Anthony followed them, pretending to be a chasing monster that made the girls roar with laughter. "Help, Mum!" Sophia exclaimed between laughs. "The garden boogeyman is after us. I'm going to devour all the pancakes." Anthony roared dramatically, provoking more laughter. Helen watched the scene, feeling a wave of happiness she hadn't experienced in a long time. This was it. This simple joy, this lightness, this sense of belonging that had been missing from her structured and solitary life. Breakfast proceeded amidst animated conversations and plans for the day. Afterward, while the girls explored the orchard, Helen and Anthony sat on the veranda to resume their conversation from the previous night. "I've been thinking about Richmond," Helen began, "and maybe there's a solution." "I'm listening." "My development firm is expanding into the Mid-Atlantic region. Coincidentally, we have projects specifically in Richmond, including a sustainable condominium with extensive green areas." Anthony raised an eyebrow, interested. "We need exactly someone with your expertise in native landscaping," Helen continued. "It would be a higher position than your current one, with the possibility for you to coordinate a team." "Helen," Anthony interrupted gently, "I don't want you to create a position for me out of pity or because of our relationship." "It's not that," she assured. "It's a real need for the project. Beatrice, my partner, mentioned the opening weeks ago, but I hesitated to comment so it wouldn't seem like I was interfering with your career." Anthony considered the proposal, visibly torn. "But if you don't want to work directly with me, I can recommend your name to the company that approached me," Helen offered. "The important thing is that we can find a solution that allows the girls to remain close and that you have the professional opportunity you deserve." "And us?" Anthony asked directly. "Where do we fit into all this?" Helen took a deep breath. "I'd like to try, Anthony, really. No pressure, no grand expectations, just see where this takes us." Before he could answer, they heard a scream coming from the orchard. It wasn't a playful scream, but one of genuine alarm. "Sophia!" Helen exclaimed, standing up immediately. Anthony was already running in the direction of the sound, with Helen close behind. They found Laura kneeling next to Sophia, who had fallen to the ground beside her wheelchair. "What happened?" Helen asked, kneeling beside her daughter. "I wanted to pick a guava from that branch," Sophia explained, embarrassed. "I thought I could reach, but I lost my balance." "Are you hurt?" Anthony asked, carefully examining her arms and legs. "Just scraped my arm, nothing serious," Sophia assured, though her lip trembled slightly. "I'm sorry for the scare." "It was my fault," Laura intervened, her eyes watering. "I should have gotten it for her, but I wanted Sophia to do it herself." "It wasn't anyone's fault," Helen assured, helping Anthony put Sophia back in her chair. "Accidents happen." "It's just that I really wanted that specific one," Sophia explained, pointing to a perfectly yellow guava on the highest branch. "Laura said the yellowest ones are the sweetest." "And they are," Anthony confirmed with a comforting smile. He assessed the height of the tree and had an idea. "Come here, Laura." With an agile movement, he lifted his daughter onto his shoulders. "Now you can reach. Get one for each of us." Laura, still on her father's shoulders, picked 4 perfect guavas, handing them to Sophia to hold in her lap. "See, Sophia, sometimes we need each other's help," Anthony commented, as he lowered Laura back to the ground. "There's no shame in that. Like a family," Sophia commented, repeating the word she had used the night before. "Yes," Helen agreed, surprising everyone. "Like a family." On Sunday, Sophia's birthday was celebrated with simplicity and joy. Helen had hired a chef to prepare a special lunch, but she gave up the professional decorator, who usually organized her daughter's parties. Instead, she, Anthony, and Laura decorated the garden together, with colorful balloons, ribbons, and flowers picked right there. The cake, a surprise prepared by Anthony and Laura, didn't have the perfection of the boutique confections Helen usually ordered, but the enthusiasm with which it was presented and the homemade flavor of the Oliver family recipe made it the best birthday Sophia had ever had. After lunch, while the girls unwrapped presents in the shade of the centenary mango tree, Helen and Anthony watched the scene a few steps away. "I've made my decision," Anthony announced calmly. "About Richmond?" "About us," he corrected. "I'm not going to accept any of the proposals for now." Helen felt a tightness in her chest. Why? Because I want to do this right. I don't want our relationship to start intertwined with professional or financial issues. I want to be sure we're together for the right reasons. And what would those be? Helen asked, her voice almost a whisper. Because we care about each other. Because our daughters love each other like sisters. Because you make me want to be a better version of myself. And I hope to do the same for you. Helen felt her eyes well up. So, what do you suggest? Let's continue as we are for now. Me in my current job, you in yours. We continue to allow the girls to strengthen their friendship, and us. He held her hand. We give this thing that's growing between us a chance, without pressure, without grand expectations. You're using my own words, Helen smiled. Because they were the right ones, Anthony confirmed. And who knows, in a few months when we're sure this is real and lasting, then we can think about next steps. Including Richmond? Including anywhere we can be together, as the family we are becoming. Helen squeezed his hand, feeling a certainty she hadn't experienced in a long time. Anthony. Yes? Thank you for teaching Sophia to just be a girl, and thank you for reminding me how to just be a woman, not just a businesswoman, a single mother, or the strong woman who overcame abandonment. Anthony smiled, his eyes reflecting genuine emotion. And thank you for showing Laura that the world can be bigger than our small apartment in Arlington, and me, that some barriers only exist in our minds. The moment was interrupted by Laura, calling, "Dad, Aunt Helen, come see what Sophia got." They approached, seeing Sophia unwrap a large flat package. It was a hand-painted canvas, showing 4 figures holding hands, 2 adults, 2 children, one of them in a wheelchair under the starry Blue Ridge sky. Laura painted it, Sophia explained, emotional. She's been practicing secretly for months. With the help of the school art teacher, Laura admitted, blushing with pride. It's our family. Helen and Anthony exchanged emotional glances. The girls had come to the same conclusion as them, perhaps even earlier, that families are not defined by blood or social conventions, but by love, respect, and the genuine desire to belong. It's perfect, Laura, Helen commented, hugging the girl who, to her surprise, returned the gesture naturally. We'll hang it in your room in Washington, D.C., Sophia decided. That way, even when we're apart, we'll remember that we're a family. We won't always be apart, Anthony assured, winking at Helen. We have plans. What plans? The girls asked in unison. Family plans, Helen replied simply. But one thing at a time. Let's live the present first. We'll build the future together, in our own time. On the way back to Washington, D.C., as the girls slept in the back seat of the pickup truck, Helen observed the savannah landscape, so different from the urban architecture she was used to. She realized that, like that resilient vegetation, she and Sophia had found ways to flourish, even in the most adverse conditions. But now, with Anthony and Laura in their lives, the path seemed less arid, more full of possibilities. What are you thinking about? Anthony asked, noticing her contemplative silence. How unpredictable life is, Helen replied. A year ago, I never would have imagined being here, returning from a weekend in the countryside with a landscaper and 2 girls asleep in the back seat. Anthony smiled. Regretting it? On the contrary, Helen replied, placing her hand on his on the steering wheel. For the first time in a long time, I feel like we're on the right path. All of us. In the back seat, Sophia opened her eyes, for a moment, observing the affectionate gesture between her mother and Anthony. She smiled to herself and fell back asleep, feeling Laura's head resting on her shoulder. A sense of peace enveloped her, the certainty that finally she had found her place in the world, beyond the wheels that had always defined her existence. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Sophia, Helen, Anthony, and Laura has touched your hearts. To continue this journey of authentic emotions, we've prepared a special playlist with equally engaging stories about human connections that overcome barriers. Find it here by clicking to your left. If this narrative resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. Every day, we bring unique stories that explore the complexities of life, showing that true inclusion begins when we see people beyond their apparent limitations. We eagerly await your comments on which moments most moved you on this journey beyond the wheels.